So Aisha, okay, hello. So Dr. Aisha Imtiaz is here. So good to see you, ma'am. And we will formally begin our session. Akriti, over to you now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. A very warm welcome, Dr. Aisha Imtiaz, ma'am. A very warm welcome. I, Akriti Das, as a member of Forum for Democracy, welcome you all to the second segment for today's lecture series on gender studies. So, today's second segment is regarding religion, identity, politics, and gender. So, religion and identity are such concepts that shape the social structure of an individual. These are such labels that changes with different groups, and there are different layers adding to it. To understand its various dimensions, we are obliged to have Dr. Aisha Imtiaz as our expert for today. Presently, Dr. Aisha Imtiaz is working as assistant professor at Women's College, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Previously, she worked at Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. She has obtained her MPhil and PhD from Center for Political Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Her research interests revolve around citizenship, gender, minorities, representation, and institutional studies. She has published several research papers in various journals, including Contemporary Voices of Dalit and Indian Journal of Politics. I will request the students to maintain the decorum of the session. And on that note, I would like to invite Dr. Aisha Imtiaz ma'am to start with her lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Very good evening to everyone. And first, I would like to say a word of thanks to Forum for Democracy and to Mata Sundari College, who have invited me for this lecture. So today I'm going to deal with the very important aspect of gender, that is religion and community identities, and how then gender emerges in that field. So as all of us know that socio-economic location of women is a very important thing through which they have access to their constitutional rights. So where women are placed, in which community, in which caste, in which religious community, in which geographical location, in non-working women, an urban or a rural women, all of it combinedly decide how able they would be to access their constitutional right. So today's concern and the vantage point here is the community. How community decides and how community enables or disables women to achieve and to obtain their rights. So here, there is a famous saying about women and the culture that is given by Denise Candioti. She says that women are considered as the custodian of cultural identity of any given community because of the fact they are less open to assimilation, they are less open to mixing up with the larger society because of the virtue that they are placed into the private or the personal houses. So this is the image, that is why the women are considered as custodians or the symbols of identity. All the religious communities present their women as the symbol of their communities. So immediately when you have the imagination, जैसे ही आप सोचते हैं एक औरत के बारे में, so her community is visible on her face, is visible in her clothes. So just think about a Hindu woman, a traditional Hindu woman. And in the same way, you just imagine about a Muslim woman. A burqa clad woman would be in front of your imagination. In the same way, a sari wearing, a sindoor wearing woman would be in your sight. So this is the community markers that women are. So as we have already know that the constitutional rights of women depend quite a lot upon their positioning in the different sections of society. So here, let's see how the community becomes important as a very important factor in women's access to their rights. So the vantage point here is the family laws or the community laws or the personal law regime, which decide and on which women's right within the marriage depend quite a lot. So what are family laws? Family laws are the laws which deal with marriage, divorce, succession, inheritance, etc. So there are a lot of family laws which are present in India. So we have constitution, we have a common criminal procedure, we have Indian penal code for civil cases, but we also have a regime for personal laws, of personal laws. So what is personal? Relationship between man and women is a personal thing. So that is why women are placed in a very personal domain, and therefore they are governed by the personal laws. So we have all sort of personal laws present here. So first kind of, so I just list their names. So we have Muslim personal law, we have Christian personal law, Parsi personal law, and for that matter, we have also Hindu code. So Hindu penal code is also a kind of a personal law, although its name is not a personal law, but rather Hindu code. But we know that there are different laws present which deal or which deal with men and women relationship, with marriage, inheritance, and succession, etc. So what happens afterward? So then the rights relate to women's right, जो औरतों के अधिकार हैं, जो कि उनकी शादी, उनके डिवोर्स, उनके इनहेरिटेंस और सक्सेशन से रिलेटेड हैं, ये कम्युनिटी टू कम्युनिटी डिफर करते हैं, क्योंकि हमारे पास अलग अलग पर्सनल लॉज हैं. इन सारे पर्सनल लॉज में भी अगर हम देखें तो हमें सबसे कंट्रोवर्शियल पर्सनल लॉ जो दिखाई देता है वो है मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ. मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ is a very problematic law in the entire identity politics, and in the it is also very problematic when it comes to in relation with Muslim women. So there are lots of ground on which Muslim women are considered backward, and one of the important ground for the backwardness of Muslim women are considered Muslim personal law. So let's understand what is Muslim personal law. So the common understanding about the personal law is this, that personal law, Muslim personal law is Islamic law or Sharia, whereas this is not exactly the case. So Muslim personal law is basically Indo-Mohammedan law which came into existence during the colonial times, when the colonial masters wanted to have certain laws. They believed in the regime of the separate laws for each community, giving the due weightage to the plurality or the diversity of society. तो जो हमारे colonial masters थे उनके लिए diversity बहुत important थी, और वो diversity के हिसाब से rule करना चाहते थे. So they wanted that there should be separate personal laws for each community. Although this Anglo-Mohammedan law, which was the law which was initially present, it was a kind of a combination of different kinds of laws, which was uncodified Indo-Mohammedan laws, mostly based on the judicial precedents. It has some elements of Islamic law, that is Sharia. It was also a kind of a recognition of the cultural practices present in the different part of the British colonies. तो ये सारा एक तरह का मिक्स जंबल था जो कि कॉलोनियल मास्टर्स ने एक जगह इकट्ठा किया और उसको सबसे पहले 1937 में कोडिफाई किया, so which we know as Muslim Personal Law Application Act 1937. So the first codification happened then, and after 2 years, the another codification came for the Muslim personal law, that is Muslim Dissolution of Marriage Act 1939. Before that, Muslim personal law did not recognize women's right to get divorced. So there were also certain changes which happened along with the separate regime of personal laws. This colonial rule also worked toward getting a kind of a common regime of law. So it has the common regime of laws into the field, such as in case of crimes, and in case of the common property rights, in case of abolition of slavery, and criminal law, etc. So there are so many things for which a common law came into existence. But when India became independent, the situation became really changed. There was a lot of debate within the constitution. So this all started even before the independence. So when there was a talk over what kind of regime of law we are going to have, so there was a huge discussion that took place within the Constituent Assembly. So even before the independence, that is in 1940-41, Hindu Reform Committee was already formed, which was to look at the case for reform into the Hindu law. Whereas Muslims, being minorities, showed a lot of reluctance towards the reform movement, and especially the reform movement which was initiated or which could be initiated by the state. So what happened then? The ground for the reform for Hindu law or Hindu personal law came into existence. For Muslim, during the Constituent Assembly, it was thought and it was discussed that let's keep the reform issue in the Muslim community on the community itself. Let's not discuss this. Let's not do it or keep it into the hand of state. So when the India became independence, immediately after the independence, Nehru started working towards improvement of Hindu code, and within a few years we have results for that. However, there was quite a lot of opposition also for the reforms in the Hindu Act. So, but still we had Hindu Marriage and Divorce Act 1955, Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956, Minority and Guardianship Act 1956, Succession and Inheritance Act 1956. We again have amendments into these provisions gradually later on. So, for Nehru, or in general, it was believed that because Hindu in majority were present in the parliament, it was a bit easier to reform the Hindu law. However, it also faced a lot of criticism from the famous leaders such as Rajendra Prasad and that of the Mahamana Madan Mohan Malviya and many others. There are so many people who kept on constantly criticizing the reform in the Hindu code. But even on the face of the criticism that that Nehru faced, Ambedkar as a law minister had to resign. So what happened with the Muslim code? We have seen that the Constituent Assembly was settled on a position. Constituent Assembly अपना एक कंक्लूजन पे आ गई थी कि जब कम्युनिटी, मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी खुद तैयार होगी रिफॉर्म्स के लिए और खुद अपने पर्सनल लॉज को जेंडर जस्ट बनाएगी, उसे रिफॉर्म करेगी, हम तब ही उसमें रिफॉर्म करेंगे, उससे पहले हम उसमें रिफॉर्म नहीं करेंगे. So there was no reforms in the Muslim personal law that happened. So what happened? Nehru himself believed that any imposition of reform from the state would hurt the Muslim sentiments because only recently India had witnessed a partition on the name of religion. अभी ही मुस्लिम्स को पार्टीशन का ब्लेम दिया जा रहा है. अगर इसी समय हम उनके ऊपर रिफॉर्म को भी इम्पोज करेंगे तो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगी. मुस्लिम आइडेंटिटी क्राइसिस की सिचुएशन पैदा हो जाएगी. So let's not talk about reform now. However, on the other hand, judiciary has played a very positive and active role towards ensuring the rights of Muslim women into marriage and divorce, etc. So what judiciary did, it has gave positive and progressive judgments, and nobody ever like talked about it before 1985. So what happened in 1985? It was really interesting. So you might have heard the name of Shah Bano case. It's a very famous case. So in Shah Bano case, what happened? Shah Bano एक 73 साल की औरत थी जिनके हस्बैंड थे मोहम्मद अहमद खान. मोहम्मद अहमद खान ने एक दूसरी शादी कर ली थी और शाह बानो उनके साथ नहीं रहती थी. ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम लेकिन उन्हें लगातार अपनी वाइफ को मेंटेनेंस देना पड़ता था. तो अब मेंटेनेंस देने के कारण शाह बानो और मोहम्मद अहमद में आपस में थोड़ी लड़ाई रहती थी और मोहम्मद अहमद पेशे से लॉयर थे. सो व्हाट ही थॉट कि मुस्लिम लॉ में या मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ में एज सच मेंटेनेंस, डिवोर्स के बाद मेंटेनेंस का कोई मसला नहीं है. तो फिर उन्होंने क्या किया, जो ग्रेजुअल मेंटेनेंस वो डिवोर्स ना होने की वजह से लगातार दे रहे थे, इससे बचने के लिए उन्होंने शाहबानो को तलाक दे दिया. 73-year women को उन्होंने तलाक दे दिया. The women, the Shahbano then went to Supreme Court asking for maintenance as a divorcee under the section 125 of Criminal Procedure Code. अब वो जो है वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट चली गई और उन्होंने कहा कि उनको जो यूनिफॉर्म कोड है हमारे पास, क्रिमिनल कोड, उसके अंडर सेक्शन 125 के जरिए मेंटेनेंस दिया जाए. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उनकी बात सुनी और मानी और उनको मेंटेनेंस दे दिया और साथ ही डायरेक्शन दिया पार्लियामेंट को कि दिस इज नाउ गोइंग वेरी लेट, इमीडिएटली लेजिस्लेट ऑन यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड व्हिच इज गिवन इन आर्टिकल 44 ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. But this has created identity crisis for Muslims. As initially I told you, women are considered as symbols of identity of the community. And even by looking at women, we are able to understand which community they belong. In fact, which community they represent and reflect. So what happened, the clergy, the ulama, the conservative section of the Muslim community became very agitated over the decision of the Supreme Court, and they started protesting on roads, and the protests were very, very huge. So what happened that Rajiv Gandhi government came under pressure, and it does not it was not willing to leave its Muslim vote bank really. So what it did, it has actually legislated and codified a new act, which is the Act Muslim Women Act of 1986. Muslim Women Protection of Muslim Women's Right on Marriage and Divorce Act. This act overrode the decision or judgment given by Supreme Court. जो Supreme Court ने जो judgment दिया था, उस judgment को इस केस ने ओवररूड कर दिया. उस जजमेंट का एक इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ये था कि सीआरपीसी, दैट इज अ क्रिमिनल कोड, इट वुड प्रिवेल एंड ओवरराइड ऑल द पर्सनल लॉज. सारे ही पर्सनल लॉज को ओवरराइड करता है क्योंकि ये क्रिमिनल कोड है, ये क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर है. बट जो आपका ये जो नया एक्ट था, मुस्लिम विमेन एक्ट 1986, इसने मुस्लिम विमेन को एक एक्सेप्शन बना दिया और कहा कि जो क्रिमिनल कोड है 125 सेक्शन जो है वो मुस्लिम विमेन पे नहीं लगेगा. Therefore, Muslim women will be governed by the traditional Muslim Personal Law Application Act 1937. जो हमारा पुराना कॉलोनियल टाइम का एक्ट है उसके जरिए ही गवर्न होंगी और इनको डिवोर्स के बाद कोई मेंटेनेंस नहीं मिलेगा. So very interesting things happened around this time. अब इससे बहुत मजेदार पॉलिटिकल चीजें शुरू हुई, जिसको हम सोच भी नहीं सकते हैं कि वो किस तरह से दूसरी इलेक्टोरल पॉलिटिक्स से जिसका रिलेशन होगा। सो शाह बानो केस की वजह से ऐसा हुआ कि जो हमारा हिंदू लीडरशिप है, जो हिंदू एक्टिविस्ट सेक्शन था, वो बहुत एजिटेट हुआ। उसने कहना शुरू किया कि हमारे साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हुआ है क्योंकि हमारे तो लॉ को आपने रिफॉर्म कर दिया और आपने मुस्लिम लॉ को रिफॉर्म नहीं किया। सो इन फैक्ट द डिस्क्रिमिनेशन which happened against the Muslim women, Hindu men taken that discrimination on themselves. They said we were actually discriminated by this act, and actually our code or personal laws were reformed. तो हमारे personal law को reform कर दिया, इनके को नहीं किया. It was a similar situation जब एक छोटा बच्चा, दो बच्चे होते हैं और एक बच्चे का हेयर कट हो जाता है तो और दूसरा बच्चा जिद कर करके अपना हेयर कट नहीं कराता, तो जो पहला बच्चा होता है जिसका हेयर कट हो चुका होता है, that starts crying कि मेरा हेयर कट क्यों करा दिया जबकि आपने इसे छोड़ दिया. So the similar kind of situation occurred between the conservative section of Hindu and the Muslim community. And now what state did, because the barber here is the state. So state ने क्या किया, ये राजीव गांधी गवर्नमेंट ने क्या कहा, उसने कहा रुक जाइए, जो कैंडी अब उस बिना बाल कटे हुए बच्चे के हाथ में है, मैं वो कैंडी उससे लेकर के आपको दे देता हूँ. So a new politics started over the Ram Mandir issue or the Babri Masjid controversy that we presently know. Rajiv Gandhi then allowed the unlocking of the doors of the Babri Masjid, which has created a lot of problems later on. So यहाँ पे उस जो मुस्लिम विमेन प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट ने जो काम किया, उस काम को अंडर पैसिफाई करने के लिए, जिसकी वजह से हिंदू बहुत एजिटेट हो गए थे, उसको पैसिफाई करने के लिए राजीव गांधी गवर्नमेंट ने एक नई कंट्रोवर्सी को ओपन कर दिया, विच इज बाबरी मस्जिद कंट्रोवर्सी. अब इसकी वजह से there are lots of community problems that we already know. The entire 1990s was a problematic era because of that. So what happened later on? In between, there was quite a lot of discussion how we could actually change or we could reform Muslim personal law. अब तो इस बात पे बात होनी शुरू हो गई कि मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ को रिफॉर्म करना बहुत मुश्किल है, तो अब इसे रिफॉर्म कैसे किया जाए. बेसिकली 2-3 तरह के सोल्यूशन सामने आए. तो पहला सोल्यूशन था, there was first solution. Okay, there was first solution which said that there must not be any separate personal laws, and uniform civil code or uniform civil law must be implemented immediately. लेकिन इस व्यू के दो सपोर्टर्स थे. पहले सपोर्टर्स वो जो अपने आप को सेक्युलर लिबरल ट्रेडिशन का हिस्सा मानते हैं. The second kind of supporters were the Hindu majoritarian supporters who believed that Muslim men have undue privilege. So अब दूसरी तरह के लोग कौन थे? उन्होंने कहा कि दूसरी तरह के लोगों ने कहा कि हमें सेपरेट पर्सनल लॉज को खत्म नहीं करना चाहिए, बल्कि उनके अंदर ही रिफॉर्म कर देना चाहिए. दिस वाज आल्सो अ गुड सजेशन. और उनको रिफॉर्म करके अगर हम इक्विटेबल कर देते हैं तो भी काम बहुत आराम से चल जाएगा. तीसरी तरह का सोल्यूशन जो आया और जो मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी की तरफ से और कंजर्वेटिव सेक्शन ऑफ किसी भी रिलीजियस कम्युनिटी की तरफ से आया, वो ये था कि they have denied that there exists any kind of discriminatory practice within the community. पर्सनल लॉज में कोई भी गड़बड़ प्रैक्टिस नहीं है. दिक्कत सिर्फ इस बात की है कि जो हमारे कम्युनिटी के लॉज हैं, जो स्क्रिप्चर्स में लिखा है, हम उन्हें ठीक से फॉलो नहीं कर रहे हैं. So after that, so in between there is this lingered controversy which was going on and on and on, and in between there were many Muslim organization, Muslim women organization came into existence. So such as All India Muslim Personal Law Board, it is a self-appointed body. Similarly, because of the differences with All India Muslim Board, there also came All India Women Board. तो इस तरह की ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस एग्जिस्टेंस में आई, और ये दोनों ही अपने आप को एज द नेम सजेस्ट, एक विमेन के लिए है और एक मेन के लिए है, दोनों एग्जैक्टली अपनी इन्हीं पोजीशंस को रिप्रेजेंट कर रही हैं। जो आपका ऑल इंडिया मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ बोर्ड है, ये बिल्कुल पेट्रियार्की, जो कम्युनिटी के अंदर पेट्रियार्की है उसे रिप्रेजेंट करता है, whereas जो आपका वुमेन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, इट रिप्रेजेंट द वॉइसेस ऑफ द वुमेन from the society, and both of them had actually started improving and reforming the personal law from within the community. But the reforms which were proposed by the All India Muslim Law Board were very patriarchal. So one of the major undertaken by this organization was the Nikah Namas and the Hidayat Namas along with Nikah Namas, in which Muslim Personal Law Board had the provision of instant triple talaq, whereas Muslim organization completely opposed it. Moreover, they have also gave a very progressive Hidayat Nama or guideline to community to follow. However, we don't have quite a lot of time, so I'm just trying to come to an end. Afterward, in 2017, happened another case, which is known as Shaira Bano case. Shaira Bano versus Union of India, another case. The others included National Women Commission and also All India Muslim Personal Law Board. So, in this case, Supreme Court has said that Supreme Court has said that the triple talaq is not valid. Moreover, it is neither Islamic nor constitutional. It is basically illegal. And if any pronouncement of this would not be considered, would not consider to have any legal effect. Therefore, instant triple talaq by this decision of the Supreme Court is ended, and any talaq which is taking place afterward would not be recognized by court as a case of a talaq or the divorce as such. But what happened? This ruling of Supreme Court did not have quite a lot of effect on the community, and the Muslim men remain indulged into the practices of triple talaq, instant triple talaq, where talaq happened in one sitting. So, by the utterance of the word talaq, talaq, talaq thrice. So now in 2019, Parliament has passed another law, which is named as Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act 2019. This act has taken into cognition that it recognized that after the Shaira Bano judgment, even there are so many cases of talaq, instant triple talaq are taking place. So what it did, by the act of the legislature, it has declared the practice of triple talaq illegal, and moreover it has criminalized the act of triple talaq, and it has proposed the punishment of 3 years, maximum 3 years, to Muslim men who practice triple talaq. So this is the trajectory of the identity politics and the gender politics that happened within the Muslim community. And today we have a new law on the Muslim women protection in marriage, in divorce cases. But we all know that the condition of the Muslim women are not only just worse by the presence of the personal law, or it cannot be simply improved, or their condition cannot be simply more ameliorated by the end of the triple talaq. However, I personally would say that this is a very good move, or it's a very wonderful move of the government to end the illegal and un-Islamic practice of triple talaq. ठीक है, तो ये जो इन्होंने काम किया है, this is a very good act for the Muslim women, but the problem is that with this act they have also criminalized a civil act of divorcing into a criminal offense. उसे एक criminal offense बना दिया है. तो उसकी वजह से इस judgment का और इस bill का बहुत ज़्यादा criticism होता आया है. But so far it has stopped the marriage of instant triple talaq for the good of the Muslim women. Okay, with this I would like to I would like to open the room for the question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for covering such vital aspects of religion, gender, and identity politics in such a holistic manner. I'm sure our students would have had a great learning experience. So students, please ask your question, and the forum is open for discussion and question answer round. So Shraddha, she has raised her hand. Shraddha, I may kindly request you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. So ma'am, my question is, जैसे कि हमने देखा ट्रिपल तलाक अब बैन हो गया है, बट स्टिल जब राज्यसभा में ये पास हुआ था तो 99 जो लोग थे वो इसके फेवर में थे, बट स्टिल 84 जो लोग थे वो उसके अगेंस्ट में थे. तो ऐसा नहीं लगता कि ये जो अगेंस्ट में थे बहुत बड़ा नंबर है, 84 भी बहुत बड़ा नंबर है, तो ये लोगों की मतलब अभी भी ऐसी मेंटालिटी है कि नहीं हमें चेंज नहीं लाना, और ये हमारी कंट्री को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं. तो जब ये रिप्रेजेंट करने वाले लोग नहीं चाह रहे कि चेंजेस आए, तो चेंजेस कैसे आएंगे? और जो रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं ऑफ कोर्स उन्हें हमने भेजा है, तो एट द लास्ट ये नहीं है कि हमारी गलती है कि हमने ऐसे लोगों को पार्लियामेंट भेजा है जो आगे के रास्ते साफ नहीं कर रहे हमारे लिए.
Basically, there is a ideological differentiation that exists at the higher level. As I told you, जब मैं आपको ये बता रही थी तो मैंने आपको बताया कि शाहबानो केस के बाद 3 स्टैंड्स एग्जिस्टेंस में आए जो पर्सनल लॉज को अलग अलग तरह से रिफॉर्म करने में का फेवर करते हैं. उनको पर्सनल लॉज को लेकर के उनका अलग अलग स्टैंड है. तो जो पहला स्टैंड है वो ये कहता है कि कोई भी सेपरेट लॉ होना ही नहीं चाहिए, बल्कि सिर्फ एक यूनिफॉर्म कोड होना चाहिए. दूसरा, उसमें 2 तरह के लोग हैं जिसके कारण जो हमारे इस्लामिक फेमिनिस्ट हैं और जनरल फेमिनिस्ट हैं ये दोनों ही उनसे अलग होते हैं. पहला तो हमारे पास सेक्युलर लिबरल सेक्शन है जो कहता है कि इन्हें जो हमारे पास सेपरेट रिजीम है ये फैमिली लॉज की इनको खत्म कर देते हैं. लेकिन साथ ही हमारा हिंदू मेजॉरिटेरियन सेक्शन जो कि आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स पे ही बिलीव करता है, जिसके बारे में मैंने आपको बताया कि वो उस बच्चे की तरह एक्ट कर रहा है जिसके बाल कट गए हैं और वो इसलिए रो रहा है क्योंकि दूसरे बच्चे के बाल नहीं कटे. तो ये वो सेक्शन है, इसका कहना है कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल लॉ को इम्पोज कर देना चाहिए फॉर द सेक ऑफ यूनिफॉर्मिटी. लेकिन इस तरह का कोई भी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल लॉ असल में इम्पोज हो ही नहीं सकता. जो भी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल लॉ इम्पोज होगा वो सारी ही डाइवर्सिटी को अभी ख्याल में रखेगा और साथ ही साथ उसका जो यूनिफॉर्मिटी होगी वो प्रिंसिपल्स की यूनिफॉर्मिटी होगी. तो प्रिंसिपल ऑफ इक्वालिटी, जस्टिस एंड लिबर्टी, these principles would be taken into consideration. So this difference would be seen at one or the other place, and parliament is one of the strong of the very important place where we are able to see these different ideological positions present. तो हम पार्लियामेंट में ही तो देखेंगे इसे, क्योंकि ये स्टेट ने इम्पोज किया है यहाँ पे रिफॉर्म जिसके लिए ज्यादातर लोग तैयार नहीं थे. इस वजह से 84 although is a huge number, it actually matters a lot. Basically ट्रिपल तलाक का जो अभी एक्ट आया इसने ट्रिपल तलाक को तो हटाया, ये तो इसने अच्छा काम किया, बट साथ ही इसने क्रिमिनलाइज भी तो किया. एक सिविल ऑफेंस को एक क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस में कन्वर्ट कर दिया। तो इस कारण भी इसको सभी लोगों का सपोर्ट नहीं मिला, और यूनिफॉर्म और यूनानिमस डिसीजन मिलना तो बहुत मुश्किल है। यूनिफॉर्म और यूनानिमस डिसीजन इसमें मिल ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि हम यहाँ पे पहले ही आइडियोलॉजी और सेक्शंस में डिवाइडेड है ना, तो अलग अलग सेक्शंस हमारे पास ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट हैं, इसलिए हमें यहाँ पे एक यूनानिमस पिक्चर नहीं मिल पाती। हाँ, ये जो 84 लोग हैं जो अलग अलग तरह से इस मामले पे, जिन्होंने अपना मत नहीं दिया इस बिल को, इस एक्ट को, वो असल में अलग अलग आइडियोलॉजिकल स्टैंड से बने हुए हैं। आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि जो 84 लोग थे इन्होंने सिर्फ किसी एक कारण की वजह से ही इस बिल को सपोर्ट नहीं दिया, उनके सभी के अलग अलग कारण हैं। तो कुछ के कारण ऐसे हैं जो जिनका ये मानना है कि स्टेट को ये रिफॉर्म नहीं लाना था बल्कि कम्युनिटी को करना था, जैसा कि नेहरू सोचा करते थे। सिमिलरली कुछ ऐसे लोग हैं जिनका ये मानना है कि जो इनमें मुस्लिम मेन को स्टीरियोटाइप और क्रिमिनलाइज किया गया वो गलत है। तीसरे वो लोग हैं जिनका ये मानना है कि औरतों की एजेंसी का इसमें ध्यान नहीं रखा गया। एक्चुअली जब ये सारा प्रोसीजर चल रहा है, उसके साथ साथ मुस्लिम औरतें खुद अपने अधिकारों के लिए लड़ रही थी। दे वर ऑल्सो प्रिपेयरिंग मॉडल निकाहनामा, तो वो सारी चीजें अभी इसमें हैंडल नहीं हुई। चौथी इंपॉर्टेंट बात ये है कि इसने सिर्फ और सिर्फ ट्रिपल तलाक को एड्रेस किया। इट डिड नॉट एड्रेस पॉलीगैमी, इट डिड नॉट एड्रेस द क्वेश्चन ऑफ डावरी, इट डिड नॉट एड्रेस many of the issues that Muslim women face. So I think you received your answer.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the next question is from Paridhi. She has raised her hand. Paridhi, please ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, one of my questions has been answered by you. I wanted to ask whether if you think that women, Muslim women especially, should fight against polygamy, because it is illegal in India for every religion except for Muslim.
Muslim women should fight against polygamy. This is your question. Should Muslim women? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I have another question.
Yes.
Regarding what is the situation of transgender community, every religion, especially Islam, because it is considered haram.
Exactly. Okay. Transgender. So, as far as polygamy is concerned, basically, if there are two ways in which I could answer this question. The one way is to answer it through the Islamic scriptures, and the other way is to answer it generally, how women look at polygamy. Polygamy is something which was present not just in the Muslim community, but it was also practiced in the non-Muslim communities as well. However, Hindu code reformed it to the extent that polygamy is being criminalized, and this is one of the aspects which is not addressed by this new act that we have with us. तो हमारे पास इस act ने इसे address नहीं किया है, and now only women are taking this fight. Moreover, let's talk about the Islamic scriptures. What Islamic scriptures say? So Islam came into the context where Arab men used to marry many women, like 70, 80, 100, any number they could marry. So at that time, Islam imposed the limit of 4 on Muslim men. They said that you cannot marry more than more than 4 women. Moreover, the situation because of the war, etc., was then such that the women were left without any husband or without any protector. So at that time, men were considered as protector. However, it's a very patriarchal understanding, but men were considered as protectors. So उन्होंने कहा कि 4 औरतों से शादी कर सकते हैं आप, only on the condition if you are able to do justice, equal justice to them. So it was a great burden which was imposed upon the Muslim men, and Quran further says that if you cannot do justice among those women, prefer or just marry 1 woman. सिर्फ एक औरत से शादी कीजिए, और यही और क्योंकि आप 4 औरतों में इंसाफ नहीं कर सकते. सो बेसिकली जो इसका जो इंटरप्रिटेशन है, एक प्रोग्रेसिव इंटरप्रिटेशन है, वो ये है क्योंकि इंसान ऐसा कर ही नहीं सकता, कोई भी आदमी या कोई भी औरत 3-4 स्पाउसेस के साथ इक्वल ट्रीटमेंट नहीं कर सकता, तो इसलिए वन मैरिज, द सिंगल मैरिज or monogamy is the best practice. So as we know that polygamy is not being addressed by neither this bill, or however the Muslim women are carrying out their own agenda for stopping the polygamy. These are like the two different things. दोनों अलग अलग तरह की चीजें हैं, और इंडिया में मुस्लिम औरतें बिल्कुल पॉलीगेमी का सपोर्ट नहीं करती। जो मॉडल निकाह नामा मुस्लिम विमेन फोरम ने बनाया, तो उन लोगों ने उसमें एक क्लॉज ये भी रखा, उसके जो हिदायतनामा उसके साथ उन्होंने बनाया, और उन्होंने उसमें ये क्लॉज ऐड किया है कि पॉलीगेमी से ये आदमी रिफ्रेन करेगा, ये इंसान से मैं शादी कर रही हूँ, इसके लिए ये कंडीशन है, मेरे साथ शादी करने पे इसके साथ ये कंडीशन है कि ये पॉलीगेमी प्रैक्टिस नहीं करेगा। इट्स an internal initiative from the community which is coming up. And the other question about the rights of homosexuals and the transgenders, etc. Yes, if we talk about the Islamic scripture, it is considered haram. So as for now, there is no progressive interpretation of homosexuality is available through the Islamic scholars. So this is how the situation is. This is what I can say about it.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Akriti, next question, please.
Yes, so the next question is from Sonam Kandar. Sonam, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is whether it is a question of female genital mutilation in Dawoodi Bohra community that is being practiced even today, or the Muslim women not allowed to enter in mosque, even in Hinduism too. In certain places, women are denied temple entry. Why religion always make boundaries only for women?
Yes, exactly. So initially, although I have just taken the route of personal laws or the family laws, but this is the fact that all the religions, in the one sentence, all the religions are gender biased, and they prevent women from getting out of their houses. They are preventing women to taking any key role in the community. So this is difficult for you to find women who are well versed into the scriptures. They perform the act of like being imam or that of the pandits or anything like that. So religion basically tries to confine women within the boundaries of their religious communities, and in fact it gives a ground in which it actually glorifies a woman who is bounded by religion, or religion which privileges men in the different ways. So you just look at the case of Pati Vrata Patnis, or you just look at the women who accept triple talaq even after the Muslim Women Protection Act, जो इस बात के लिए कहती हैं कि इस्लाम में क्योंकि ट्रिपल तलाक दिया गया है, however it's not true. उन्हें खुद भी इस्लाम का पता नहीं है, लेकिन उन्हें जितना समझा दिया गया है उसके हिसाब से ये है कि इस्लाम में इंस्टेंट ट्रिपल तलाक दिया हुआ है, तो अगर कोर्ट भी कुछ भी कहता है, पार्लियामेंट भी कुछ भी कहती है, फिर भी उन्हें मानना है. सो जो ये मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन है, this is very problematic. Okay, so yes, religion puts limits on women's power and it glorifies the power of men, and it encourages patriarchy. Yeah.
So the next question is from Rehmat Zabi. Rehmat, please unmute yourself.
Very much good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question that as a triple talaq has been banned, so what is the other way if a couple want to get separate from each other? They both want. So what is the other way?
See, there are 3 ways of divorce which are available presently to Muslim women in India. तो हमारे पास 3 तरीके हैं. पहला तरीका जो है जिसे हम ट्रिपल तलाक़े सुन्नत जिसे हम कहते हैं, तलाक़े बिदअत, ट्रिपल तलाक वाज तलाक़े बिदअत, which is now no more allowed in India, not permitted, but talaq is sunnat, which in which man gives divorce to wife. The other is khula, a divorce which is given by women to men. And the third way is the judicial process in which one goes to the court and files the case for divorce and gets divorce. So जो तलाक़े सुन्नत है उसके जरिए अभी भी लोग अपनी कम्युनिटी के विद इन तलाक ले सकते हैं. तलाक़े सुन्नत का जो प्रोसीजर है, it lasts for 3 months. So in first sitting, husband pronounce talaq to wife once and wait for the 1 month period in which there are possible chances of reconciliation between them. उनके बीच में reconciliation या compromise हो सकता है. फिर उसके बाद वो अगर ऐसा नहीं होता है तो वो दोबारा से तलाक देता है. This is called the second talaq. And again he waits for the period of 1 month. And then again, if reconciliation does not happen, then the third talaq he can give. And then the procedure of talaq would be considered complete. इस तरह से तलाक को हम complete मानते हैं. अब इसके बाद reconciliation के chances खत्म हो जाते हैं और प्रॉपर डिवोर्स को प्रोनाउंस कर दिया जाता है कि इन दो लोगों का आपस में डिवोर्स हो गया है, अब ये अलग रहेंगे. और इस 3 महीने के दौरान जो औरत है वो अपने मैरिटल होम में अपने हस्बैंड के साथ रहती रहेगी, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. सेकेंडली, वुमेन कैन गिव तलाक टू मेन. अब इसमें क्या है कि अब खास बात क्या है कि जब आदमी तलाक देता है तो वो 3 महीने 13 दिन के इद्दत पीरियड को फॉलो करता है, जिसमें औरत इद्दत को फॉलो करती है, इन विच शी कैन नॉट मैरी. ठीक है, वो शादी नहीं कर सकती और इस दौरान उसका मेंटेनेंस उसका हस्बैंड बियर करता है. सेकेंडली, खुला जो है उसमें औरत अपने शौहर को तलाक देती है थ्रू दी दारुल कज़ा, द लोकल कोर्ट, एनीवे डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट में जो आपके फैमिली कोर्ट्स हैं यहाँ से भी तलाक हो जाता है. खुला क्लेम करनी होती है जो कि आपका मुस्लिम मैरिज डिसोल्यूशन एक्ट 1939 के जरिए रिकॉग्नाइज किया गया है. इसमें क्या होता है, जो इद्दत डिवोर्स की कंडीशन में डिवोर्स देने के बाद औरत को मेंटेनेंस का कोई अधिकार नहीं मिलता. तो ये 3 तरीके हैं जिनके जरिए अभी प्रेजेंट सिनेरियो में कोई भी मर्द और औरत आपस में तलाक ले सकते हैं.
थैंक यू मैम.
ओके,
Next question, Akriti.
Yes, so the next question is from Latika. Latika, please unmute yourself.
गुड इवनिंग मैम. मैम मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि एक 1954 में एक केस हुआ था, यूसुफ अब्दुल अजीज वर्सेस बॉम्बे राज्य. तो मैम इस केस में ये हुआ था कि जो आईपीसी की धारा 497 है उसका संवैधानिक दर्जा, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल स्टेटस था, उसको चुनौती दी गई थी. उसमें ये था मैम कि एडल्ट्री का जो जुर्म होता है उसके लिए केवल और केवल मेल्स को ही सजा दी जाती थी. वुमेन्स को तो प्रोवोकेटिव के रूप में भी सजा नहीं दी जाती थी और ओनली मेल्स को सजा दी जाती थी. तो यूसुफ अब्दुल अजीज नाम के एक मेल ने ये केस मतलब चुनौती दी. तो मैम सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये बोल दिया और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये बोला कि उसने ये बोला था कि ये जेंडर बेस्ड इनइक्वालिटी है. हमारा जो आर्टिकल 15(1) है वो ये कहता है कि लैंगिक आधार पर कोई भी भेदभाव नहीं होगा, पर ये तो लैंगिक आधार पर भेदभाव है. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला था कि ये लैंगिक आधार पर केवल और केवल लैंगिक आधार पर भेदभाव नहीं है, क्योंकि इसमें समाज में जो महिलाओं का एक विशेष दर्जा है उसको ध्यान में रखकर ये सब किया गया है. तो मैम क्या आपको नहीं लगता कि ये पुरुषों के साथ भेदभाव ही है? क्योंकि मैम जो औरतें इस जुर्म में शामिल हैं उनका जो सामाजिक दर्जा है, समाज में उनका विशेष दर्जा है, अगर इस तरीके से देखेंगे तो क्या पुरुषों का कोई दर्जा नहीं है समाज में?
हाँ, राइट. आपने बहुत थॉट प्रोवोकिंग क्वेश्चन रेज किया है, जिसमें औरतों और मर्दों के दर्जे के बारे में बताया गया है, जिसमें जो औरतों का दर्जा आपने इमेजिन किया है मेरे ख्याल में वो कुछ इस तरह का है कि जिसमें औरत की बहुत इज्जत होती है और जिसको औरत, जिसको हम लक्ष्मी के रूप में जानते हैं, ग्रह लक्ष्मी, अन्नपूर्णा का जो स्वरूप है वो औरत है, इसलिए उसका विशेष दर्जा है। जबकि मर्द के साथ ऐसा कोई दर्जा नहीं है। क्या मर्दों का विशेष दर्जा नहीं होता सोसाइटी में? If you look at the picture otherwise, women are within, because it's a very kind of a societal portrayal of women, it's a very kind of a religious portrayal of women of all religions. ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ इंडियन सोसाइटी में हर जगह औरत को बहुत पायस रूप में पेश करने की कोशिश की जाती है और उसकी पायसनेस को उसकी सेक्सुअल चॉइसेस, उसकी सोशल चॉइसेस और उसकी पार्टनर चॉइसेस पे फौरन इमीडिएटली डाल दिया जाता है। इसलिए हमेशा वुमेन को ऐसा माना जाता है प्रोटेक्शन की जरूरत है, मेन को नहीं है। बट मेन को क्यों नहीं है? सो व्हेन there is any acquisition of adultery or any acquisition of for that matter on character comes in, these are women who become the victim of such kind of allegation. Therefore these are women who are to be saved from that kind of situation. To be saved, I mean, in this situation also we are using a very passive, very gender ridden patriarchal vocabulary. उसके बावजूद भी हम लोग औरतों को सेव और प्रोटेक्ट करने में ज्यादा यकीन रखते हैं, क्योंकि अगर रेप होता है, there are two people who are involved into rape, a man and a woman. But just tell me who is more stereotyped, who is more looked down by society? कौन है जो जिसकी ज्यादा इज्जत खराब होती है in this context? कौन है जिसको बुरी नजरों से देखा जाता है? क्या उस रेपिस्ट मैन को या फिर उस रेप्ड वुमेन को जिसने एक्चुअली कुछ नहीं किया बट शी बिकेम विक्टिम ऑफ द रेप? सो इन दिस कंडीशन, yes, Supreme Court tried to protect women and tried not to protect men in that ways, because men's adultery, in fact, the people who are like who in fact commit rape, they are able to get married. But women who got raped, who did anything wrong into that, they become victim of the social pressure, they become victim of the society, and they in fact sometimes, and in fact generally, they are not able to live very respectful lives in society. So it's not, I would not consider it as a case where men are not holding any special position in society. So,
okay.
Is there any
so
other
we just take 3 more questions because already we are running late. So there are people who are waiting for a long time. Diksha, Arshpreet, so we can ask Akriti. Go ahead. Akriti, I think your internet is unstable. So Diksha, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that there has been a drastic change in the position of women. We have come a long way, but do you think this change, this pace has been slower with Muslim women regarding any study for any field like education, getting freedom to do anything? So do you feel that this change, this pace of change has been slower in Muslim women in comparison to other community women?
Yeah. So yes, you are right. The pace of growth and progress is slower in case of Muslim women. And recently, not really recently, in 2006, we have a report named as Sacha Committee Report on the Status of Muslim Community. This report pinpointed and highlighted how the women in general, behind in their community. So they are also comparatively backward if we compare the condition of the Hindu women with that of the Muslim women. So Muslim women would be then the last one on the entire terrain of the development. So they are if we compare the 3 main yardsticks that we use: education in terms of literacy, economic autonomy and that of the participation in decision making and mobility. In all three important markers, Muslim women are leading behind, and a very crucial role here is played by the identity politics and security issues that Muslim community is facing. So for many, the dropout of, like, in the Hindu community, when a girl, this is such a committee reports finding that I'm telling you, this is so if a girl in the Hindu community drops out of the school, there is many chances that she would be working as a domestic labor anywhere in the house. Whereas in comparison with that, if Muslim women Muslim girl drop out of the school, the many chances is that she would get married or she would simply stay at home. So the concern here is that of the security of that girl, more than that of that she could in fact contribute into the economy of the house. तो ये जो security वाला जो मुद्दा है मुसलमानों के अंदर, community as a whole और गर्ल सिक्योरिटी स्पेशली, इस केस की वजह से बहुत चांसेस होते हैं कि वो लोग अपनी लड़कियों को स्कूल नहीं भेजते हैं. और एज आई टोल्ड यू कि माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज अपनी औरतों पे ज्यादा डोमिनेंट होती हैं, इस वजह से वो उन्हें कभी भी अपने डिसीजन मेकिंग का हिस्सा नहीं बनने देती आसानी से. एंड एट द सेम टाइम देयर मोबिलिटी इज क्वाइट लॉट रिस्ट्रिक्टेड. तो उनका भाई, उनका बाप या उनका हस्बैंड हमेशा उन्हें अकम्पनी करता है जब जब भी वो घर के बाहर निकलती है. तो इस तरह से अगर हम देखें तो ये मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी का पेस स्लो है, और इस स्लोनेस में हर चीज के साथ साथ आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स का बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कंट्रीब्यूशन, जिसकी वजह से मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी अपने आप में बहुत ज्यादा डरी हुई रहती है. So there was a very good interview which was taken by Razia Patel, in which a woman was saying कि हमें कानून का अधिकार चाहिए, लेकिन कानून के अधिकार का क्या होगा जब हमारा समाज ही नहीं बचेगा. समाज इज द मुस्लिम समाज है. तो उनका कहना है कि हमें ये सारे अधिकार चाहिए जो और औरतों को मिल रहे हैं, लेकिन ये अगर हमारी कम्युनिटी नहीं सिक्योर रहेगी, नहीं सेफ रहेगी, तो हम इस अधिकार का क्या करेंगे. सो इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट मुस्लिम विमेन आर वेरी prone to the issues of security. They don't get enough education, therefore they are not able to directly come into economic fields, and therefore as you know that economic independence gives a lot when it comes to decision making. तो इस वजह से वो decision making में भी उनका process बहुत slow है, and it is very slow due to their minority status. तो आप हमेशा याद रखिएगा कि मुसलमान औरतों के बारे में बात करने के लिए उनकी कम्युनिटी की बात साथ साथ में करनी पड़ती है, क्योंकि वहीं पे उनका एग्जिस्टेंस है और वो कम्युनिटी के थ्रू अपने एग्जिस्टेंस को रिकॉग्नाइज कर पाती है. सो यस, देयर कंडीशन इज रियली रियली बैड एंड देयर प्रोग्रेस इज स्लो. यस आकृति, is there any other question?
Yes ma'am, there are 2 more questions and after that we'll wrap up. So the next question is from Arshpreet.
Put the questions together and then wrap up, or you want to take one? So we take both the questions together. Arshpreet?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can briefly ask your question, okay. Then we ask Paridhi to ask her question and we can take both of them together.
Okay, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is, at the very beginning, you asked us to think about a Hindu traditional woman and a Muslim woman. So हमारे mind में ही image आता है a lady wearing burqa would be like a Muslim woman. So ma'am, what's the reason behind this, like behind wearing burqa? And my second question is, like, it's a religious question. The second question is, ma'am, are Muslim women allowed to enter into dargah? And if yes, तो उन्हें मस्जिद में जाने से मतलब पाबंदी क्यों है?
अच्छा, so the first question is of burqa. So you know what, burqa and the other was on the mosque entry. So the thing is, burqa or niqab or hijab. Hijab is the term which is the right term for burqa that is being used. Hijab is about covering the body. So the notion of hijab is a cultural notion which was present in Arab. Now, so many Muslims have recognized this fact that hijab or burqa was a religious, not a religious thing, but it was a cultural practice did or played by the Arab people because of the weather and the other things. So you look at the Arab men, how do they dress themselves? They wear a long cloth and they also wear something on their head. So in that ways, they themselves carry a kind of a burqa. Moreover, the concept of hijab initially did not include the covering of the face. So this is a new thing which in concept, as we say that the ghungat was introduced in India because of the bad eyes of the Mughals, and similarly the same kind of concept was gradually introduced at the several places among the Muslim population. So now Muslim women started wearing proper burqa, proper hijab, where they also covered their faces. However, in the Islamic scriptures, it is clearly written that no one should hide their identity. So the face, as it is the marker of identity, should not be hidden. ये इसे छिपाना नहीं है. लेकिन as I know, there are like a lot of misunderstanding about religion which is present there. पहले ही बहुत सारी misunderstandings हैं और हिजाब का जो notion है, इसलिए ये बहुत differ करता है. So you might see girls around yourself who are simply wearing a scarf on their head. There are also women and girls who are wearing an abaya and also a scarf, but they kept their faces open. There are also women who completely wear hijab, they cover their faces. And you will also meet some girls who also cover their hands with gloves and their feet with socks. So ये जो है ये different interpretation का मसला है कि कौन किस चीज को किस तरह से interpret करता है. So it's really differs कि हम कैसे हिजाब को देखते हैं. तो हिजाब एक कल्चरल प्रैक्टिस थी अरब की जो कि अब मुस्लिम्स की रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस बन गई है gradually. Then the question of mosque. So there are also sectional. Muslims are not homogeneous community and Muslim women too are not homogeneous. So the Barelvi sect of the Hanafi segment recognize the going of women in Shireen and Dargahs, whereas they do not recognize coming of women to mosque. The other different sect in the Muslim community, that is the Al-Hadith section, it says that women can have entries into mosque and they in fact allow their women to enter into mosque. Moreover, the reason initially as of like religious, so initially the entry into the mosque was allowed in the initial years of Islam, but gradually when Islam became stronger, the women were supposed to stay at home because when they get out of their homes for the namaz in mosque, the entire nizam of the house become, that falls apart. तो जो पूरे घर का निजाम होता है वो पूरा निजाम ही खराब हो जाता है अगर औरतें घर के बाहर चली जाती हैं. तो there is patriarchy involved into not letting the women go to mosque than that of the religion itself. तो religion ने कहीं पे भी मना नहीं किया है कि औरतों की एंट्री नहीं हो सकती exactly, लेकिन एंट्री होने के साथ दिक्कत ये है कि जो हमारे घर का निजाम है वो पूरी तरह से खराब हो जाएगा. So this is why, and this is how the practice of women not going to mosque has actually started, and now it has become a very strong practice, and now no women actually go to mosque except the Al-Hadith women. And more importantly, I must mention here that the most important ritual that happens there in form of Hajj, there men and women are allowed to pray together in the most prestigious mosque, and they were also allowed to wear the minimum parda, which is like minimum hijab that Islam suggests, and no woman is allowed to cover her face. Okay. Okay, so you received your answer.
Yes, she says thank you, ma'am. And Akriti, now can you formally wrap up the session?
Yes, ma'am, sure. I'll now formally wind up the session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for covering all the aspects and making the subject of religion, gender, and identity policy so lucid for us. A heartfelt thanks for your kind presence. We definitely look forward to learn from you in future as well. So a very thank you to ma'am. I'm very grateful to you. And for the students, please kindly note that the next session is scheduled for tomorrow. That is day 8 of the course. The theme for the session shall be gender equality and fluidity, and the session would begin sharp at 12 p.m. I request you all to log in at least 10 minutes prior to the lecture to avoid any issue. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
A
so
very
much,
good evening.
Aisha, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming. It was an excellent session and we really learned a lot. It broke our own stereotypes about community identity and all. Thank you very much, ma'am. We look forward to have you for our session next. Thank you so much, Lokesh, sir, for being here. And let's end. And tomorrow is a very exciting day. It's a super Sunday, I would say. We have very special people coming in. So I would request all the students to be there, ask questions, be an enthusiastic participant, because we have an international guest and we also have Mr. Anurag Chauhan and other people who would answer questions on gender fluidity and inclusivity, which I think many students have been talking about a lot, and they have a lot of questions on that. So please be there in large numbers. Attendance is important. So attend properly all the sessions. Thank you, everyone. Now we may leave the meeting.